Alright, it is week 19 in the MASL, and I've got some picks for you. But before I get to those picks, there is some unfinished business. As many of you know, last week I went head to head with Merlin from the Turf and Boards. Merlin is of course also known as Matt, who every week, alongside his daughter Hannah, predicts each and every MASL game, just as I do. So last week we decided to go head to head to see who was the superior MASL predictor. And by some miracle, I came out on top, but not by much. I finished with a 10-3 record, which was only one game better than Hannah and 2 games better than Matt. I think that we can all agree that with records that close to each other, it's hard to say anything definitive, so I'm sure that at some point there's going to be a rematch, and I look forward to it. It was a lot of fun having that head-to-head matchup last week. If you all haven't checked out Merlin's pieces at the Turf and Boards, you should definitely do so. They're a lot of fun to read, and while you're there, check out the rest of the site. The Turf and Boards is chock full of awesome MASL content. I'll put a link down below. You should definitely check it out. So with all that said, let's jump in to this week's picks. We start off with a good one on Thursday. We have the San Diego Sockers visiting the Ontario Fury. This game is so good, in fact, it is my game of the week. And it's my game of the week for a few different reasons. Number one, it has some massive playoff implications for that second spot in the Pacific Division, but also it features Landon Donovan of the Sockers going head-to-head with Jermaine Jones from the Ontario Fury. That should be fun to watch. And on top of all of that, the Fury and the Sockers, they're two very competitive teams that are usually pretty fun to watch. As for who I think's going to win, there's a couple things at play here. Number one, the last time these teams played, the game was in San Diego, but Ontario made that game very interesting. They didn't win, but they were leading for a lot of that game, and overall, they made that game ultra competitive. The second is the current standings. The Sockers have had the Pacific Division clinched for a long time, and if we're being honest, they've got a somewhat comfortable grip on that top seed in the MASL. Meanwhile, Ontario, they could take a major step forward in getting that second spot in the Pacific Division if they win this game. So I think Ontario is going to come into this game with a lot of fire and fury. And given that they've already played the Sockers very competitively, I think Ontario is going to win. Then on Friday, we have the Rio Grande Valley Barracudas visiting the Turlock Express. I'm sometimes kind of quick to dismiss the Express given how rough their season has been, but Turlock is a tough place to play, and they play pretty well at home. So I think RGV is going to have their hands full on Friday, but I do think that RGV is still the superior side and that they're going to win, but it's going to be an awfully tight game. Then on Saturday, we have the Baltimore Blast visiting the Florida Tropics. The Blast are currently tied with Utica for first place in the Eastern Division, but they don't hold that all-important tiebreaker. If they wanted to win the division, they would have to win this game and then get some help from Orlando next week when the Seawolves play Utica. And given that the Eastern Division playoffs, the schedule has already been set, I'm not really sure if the Blast are really playing for all that much in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if they rested some of their starters just to prevent injury. But with all that being said, I still think they have enough firepower to beat the Tropics, but I am putting the Blast on upset watch because I could see the Tropics stealing this away from them. Also on Saturday, we have the Mississauga MetroStars visiting the Harrisburg Heat. I feel like these two teams have been playing a lot recently, and unlike earlier in the season, the Heat as of late have been dominating. I see no reason that will change on Saturday. I'm picking Harrisburg. Then for our final game on Saturday, we have the Tacoma Stars visiting the Dallas Sidekicks. Any optimism I had for the Stars earlier this year has died. Last week, the Stars had an early 4-0 lead over the Sockers, but they screwed it up and lost that game, which to me kind of summarizes their season. They keep on finding ways to lose, and I really don't see anything that will break that trend on Saturday, so I'm picking the Sidekicks. Moving right along to Sunday, we have the Tacoma Stars visiting Flash de Monterrey. As I just said, I've lost pretty much all hope for the Stars, which is hard for me to say because I really thought this team had potential, and I still think they have potential. They're just not playing like it. So I've got to pick the Flash in this game. Then for our final game this week, we have the San Diego Sockers hosting the Rio Grande Valley Barracudas. This game could very well be a preview of the Western Conference Finals, which would be a lot of fun to watch. I'd be down for these two teams duking it out for a chance at the MASL Championship, but I think that this game on Sunday is going to be a little bit more subdued than any potential playoff matchup because there's not as much on the line. And normally I would think that favors the Barracudas, but the Sockers have just been playing so great this year, and for the Barracudas, it's the second game of a 2-game road trip, so I'm going to pick San Diego. So that will do it for my Week 19 MASL predictions, but make sure you come back next week to see which ones I got right and which ones I got wrong, as well as my Week 20 MASL predictions. In the meantime, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.